Hi, are you thinking about moving to Seattle, Washington, and you are considering a suburb around it like Newcastle, Washington? Well, in this small town just south of Bellevue, Washington, we're going to be exploring some of the pros and cons of living in Newcastle, Washington, and also explore a little bit about the map. So this is really going to be your ultimate guide to getting to know Newcastle better, in addition to my vlog, which you should definitely check out that video. But that's what we're going to get into today. So if that sounds good to you, then let's get right after it. Hey, if this is your first time to my channel and you want to know about moving to the Seattle area, just kind of getting to know the suburbs around it, then definitely subscribe below and tap the bell for notifications so that you don't miss another market update. I am Kelsey Anderson and I get contacted all the time from people just like you who are looking to reach out because they are moving to the area soon. Maybe it's not this week, maybe it's not next month, but whenever it is, I'd love to get in contact with you. Let's just kind of get to know what you're looking for, what your family is looking for, so we can get into the kind of the nitty-gritty things, thinking about what is going to be most beneficial for you as you're thinking about moving to this area. I'd love to help you make a smooth move to Seattle. So first, let's jump into just some quick facts about Newcastle, Washington. So number one, this small suburb only has about 13,000 people. It is sandwiched 12 miles from Seattle in between Bellevue to the north, Issaquah to the east, and Renton directly south. It's really close to Lake Washington, so just sitting on the east shore of Lake Washington, but it doesn't really have any direct water access. One of the best things about living in Newcastle is just the proximity to both Bellevue and Seattle. So we all know the entertainment and just tech hubs that we see in Bellevue and Seattle, and it is super close. So just about 15-20 minutes, you hop on 405. I'll show you that here in a second, but just excellent location. Niche.com gives Newcastle, Washington an A+ rating, and it scores an A+, and it's good for families and outdoor activities, as well as receiving an A in public schools, diversity, and health and fitness. The median home value living in Newcastle, Washington is $1.5 million. But there's definitely a mix of new and old. So you can find a lot of what you're looking for in Newcastle with extremely great proximity to those big cities, Bellevue and Seattle. All right, so now you can see my map here to kind of show you where Newcastle is in relation to those big cities, Bellevue and Seattle. So of course, Newcastle is outlined here in red. And again, just about 15-20 minutes into Seattle, you're gonna be using 405 to be accessing Newcastle easily. So you can easily take 90 to get into Seattle here. You'll also take 405. If we head down south, I'll kind of zoom out here for a second so you can see where SeaTac Airport is, but also really close to SeaTac Airport. Just about 15 minutes to get into, maybe 20 minutes if there's a little bit of traffic, but 15 to 20 minutes, you're gonna hit SeaTac Airport. So just great proximity. I think that adds to the price tag here in Newcastle, just because you're super close to Bellevue, Seattle, and SeaTac Airport. I also wanna highlight a little bit of the fun. So if you take 405 going north and you hit 90 and you take that out east, you're gonna hit North Bend and the Snoqualmie area. And this is where all your skiing and snowboarding and river tubing is gonna be. You can fish out there, you can hike, there's tons of trails. And then halfway to get to North Bend, which is gonna be about 30 minutes to the east, 30 to 45 minutes, depending on which exit you're gonna go to and you wanna make it out to some of the higher slopes. There's also in Issaquah, you've got the Issaquah Alps. So lots of hiking and just kind of like fun on the trails. Like you can take your horseback there, you can do little hikes, you can do big hikes, just tons of fun in Cougar and Tiger Mountain. So you are very, very close to lots of hiking and outdoor recreation right in Issaquah. A huge plus of living in Newcastle. All right, I'm gonna jump into a little bit more zoomed in here, and I just wanna show you this main drag. So Coal Creek Parkway, that connects you from Renton all the way into Bellevue here. So that's gonna take you to 405 at a different exit, but this sort of main drag literally splits the city in half. You can really see Newcastle has a western side and an eastern side here, and this road takes you north and south and is going to connect you two freeways, and again, locations in Bellevue and Renton. Along this, you're going to see this kind of middle area right here is that main shopping center. So that is where you're going to have your, your QFC and your Safeway. There's Overlake medical clinics there. They've got a primary care and urgent care. You have all of you got Mexican restaurants, you got great Chinese, you can get your boba tea. There's a library there. B&E Meats is right there. There's also a very popular fruit and vegetable stand there that has seasonal plants as well. Just a hugely popular area to get all your daily needs taken care of. But that's going to kind of be that main spot. There's also Newcastle Commons, which also just went in just a few years ago. That's kind of more on this north side here. And Newcastle Commons is going to have, they have Blazing Onion, they've got Frosty Barrel, lots of brand new townhomes went in there. You've got your Starbucks, your Mod Pizza, Ahi Sushi, just lots of fun bites there as well. If golf is your jam, we've got the golf club at Newcastle. That's where I start on my vlog. And then Lake Boren Park. There's actually a really cool trail that kind of goes along here, kind of along Coal Creek. You can kind of look out of that little residential lake, but lots of fun in that park. I do take you there, but lots of just kind of events for the 4th of July. And there's like Newcastle days. There's concerts in the park. It's a great spot for kids and families to enjoy, and it's very centrally located. The last thing I want to show you on the map here is Southeast May Creek Park Drive. And so that is, again, if we're kind of looking at Coal Creek Parkway, which is that main drive that takes you north and south, you also have this road, and this is a very nice, beautiful kind of just windy road that will take you all the way down to another exit on 405. There's more kind of bars and restaurants. There's a little bit of fun over here close to the freeway, but this road's going to take you to a lot more residential areas and some brand new construction. Definitely driving up that median home price in Newcastle. Is located kind of in this region here. I just did want to emphasize that most of Newcastle is more residential. It's quiet. We're going to get into the pros and cons here, but just those main shopping centers is kind of really all you have as far as local in Newcastle. If you want more, you want bigger shopping, you want bigger retail centers, more restaurants to choose from, more nightlife, you're definitely going to be going out of Newcastle. But we're going to be getting into that right now. So we're going to start off with the first pro of living in Newcastle, Washington. And that first pro is just the outdoor beauty of living in Newcastle, Washington. So there are 40 acres of developed parks in Newcastle. So again, a great place for family and just like to enjoy the outside, as that's a huge draw of coming to the Northwest. And living here is just getting to enjoy the green trees surrounding you, kind of making this kind of tranquil, peaceful place, especially if you're going to come out and live in more of a residential small suburb. There's also 11 miles of trails just throughout this area. I do take you to Coal Creek Park. Coal Creek Trail, and that's about a 3.7-mile trail kind of running close to the golf course that I just showed you. And this is an awesome trail with little, bridges and things like that. There's also 17 parks that are managed by the city. And then King County has the Cougar Mountain Regional Wildland Park also on the east side. And that's 35 miles of hiking. Again, right on that eastern border that Newcastle shares with Issaquah. And like I said, we are super close to the Issaquah Alps. So Cougar Mountain and Tiger Mountain and Squawk Mountain are just on the east side of Newcastle. So hiking, walking trails, all that stuff. You've got tons of trails, hundreds of trails to choose from, honestly, and many hundreds of miles to walk. The second pro of living in Newcastle, Washington is definitely just the quality of life. So this is a very slow pace, small residential kind of quaint upscale suburb for the most part. A lot of the homes, like I said, are new construction, but there's also a lot of other neighborhoods, but they're just quiet. We don't have huge bus lines or trains coming through this small residential place, which contributes to a really low crime rate. So 86% of people report feeling really safe in Newcastle. They can walk around at night without being scared. So that's just a huge plus. Again, especially if you're thinking about raising or bringing your family to Newcastle, that's a huge plus. There is some property crime and theft and things like that, but the violent crime is extremely, extremely low. So definitely would trust my family in Newcastle, Washington. The families that usually reside in Newcastle are higher income. So the median household income is $145,000. So you definitely have a lot of working class families living in this area, and they care about their surroundings, and they want to take care of their neighbors, things like that. The number 3 pro of living in Newcastle, Washington is the accessibility and location. So I have touched on this, but just being so close to Bellevue and Seattle, and then not to mention all the outdoor fun and opportunities in Issaquah. You should definitely check out my video if you want to know about living near Issaquah. Same with Bellevue and Renton. So I've got information that covers all of these suburbs, but being so close to these areas, those suburbs might stand out more to you than Newcastle, just because Newcastle's on the smaller side, but you're sandwiched between 3 lovely towns, Bellevue, Issaquah, and Renton. And again, so close to the airport, and even Kirkland, which is one of my very favorite suburbs around Seattle, is just about 20 minutes north. So if you want to hit up that downtown Marina Park and going to all the, festivals and events happening in Kirkland and all the beautiful restaurants on the water, again, that's only about 20 minutes north. So you're close to everything. Wherever you might work, you are close to it. The third pro of living in Newcastle is just kind of the small town community feel. So because of Lake Boren Park, it's very centrally located. They've got a lot of fun happening in that park throughout the year. So they have Newcastle Days. It's called Fourth of the Lake. And then also lots of concerts in the park. So lots of fun happening at that Lake Boren Park. And it just kind of gives you that community feel. In all the neighborhoods that I have been to and toured and had business through in Newcastle, it just has that kind of like family feel of a neighborhood. You feel just really safe and like your neighbors are taking care of you. I did mention that fruit and vegetable stand as well as B&E meats. Just having kind of those kind of quintessential, food places that people go and, get their meat to cook for dinner and their fruit and vegetables and their plants. You're just going to start to run into your neighbors, things like that. Just adds to the community feel in Newcastle, Washington. Heading over to the cons of living in Newcastle, Washington, that number 1 con is going to be the cost of living. So Newcastle is definitely not cheap. Obviously, if you are close to all these incredible amenities and you have safety, low crime rate, all those things, what also is going to come with that is the cost of living. So the cost of living index is 115, which means that it is 15% higher than the average cost of living in other places. Like I said, the median home price is $1.5 million, which is definitely not cheap. It's really comparable to Bellevue, and it's higher than the surrounding areas like Issaquah and Renton to the south. The median household income is $145,000. So definitely, that means a lot of families make a lot more than that. So that includes some of the older families that are still living in these homes that were built back in the late 1900s, like 1970s, 1980s. And those families don't make as much. So most people are making over $200,000 as far as families, I should say, to live in Newcastle, Washington. Apartments in Newcastle are going to range anywhere between $1,700 and $3,700. So in Newcastle Commons, I kind of take you through some of these townhomes. They were just put in, but the 3-bedroom townhomes there get up to $3,700 to rent out. So definitely not a cheap place to rent, but again, incredible proximity. In the Newcastle Commons on that north side of Newcastle, you are only about 5 to 8 minutes from 405. So great location, getting to that airport, getting into those towns you need for work. Condos in this area are just about $1 million. So again, really similar to Issaquah, places like that. It's definitely going to cost you to have a condo, even though you don't even have your own land, but just the kind of quaint, quiet nature of this residential town is going to drive up the price of even condos. Number 2 con of living in Newcastle is definitely the limited nightlife and entertainment. Okay, it's next to nothing. If you want to catch a movie, you're definitely going to have to go into Issaquah, Bellevue, or Renton. There is nothing in Newcastle. It's just more residential. Now there are some amazing restaurants. Tapatio is really great if you want to get that happy hour margarita with your friends, if you want to pick up some Chinese food, there are options. Blazing Onion has a happy hour, and you can get your coffee at Starbucks and things like that, but that's pretty much it. You can get your groceries, but they don't have a Trader Joe's or a Whole Foods or a PCC's market or anything like that. So definitely just limited options on groceries and entertainment. There's virtually nothing. There is a library there, but that's about it. If you head over to the west side, which you're getting closer to Lake Washington, there is Dino's Pub, which is a fun little spot to grab happy hour. But again, just really limited options. You're going to have to go 15 to 20 minutes if you want to hit more bars and restaurants, places to, see art museums and art performances, performing arts performances, things like that. It's just going to be out of the city. It's not going to be in Newcastle, Washington. The third con of living in Newcastle is the commute. This is not a huge con because it has great proximity, but one of the downsides is there's just not a lot of roads to get you to where you want to go. So like I said, Coal Creek Parkway is that main drag that takes you north and south, and that can get really backed up, especially if there is an accident. It gets really slow through there. I live really close to there, and it's happened to me many times. So Coal Creek Parkway, again, if it gets shut down because of an accident or something like that, the police just kind of mark it off. It's very hard, and it will back up just like all the side roads around there getting to 405. And that leads me to the second point. It's just 405, I-405, that runs north to south from SeaTac Airport all the way up north, like through Bothell as it connects over to I-5 again. Just gets really, really slow. So depending on 405, if you're needing to get into Bellevue and Seattle, can be hard, especially if you have to commute during those rush hour times. It can be pretty brutal. So as you're in a great location, but you're definitely going to want to plan your commute times if you don't love sitting in traffic, because that can definitely be a huge con of being forced to be along 405. The fourth con of living in Newcastle, Washington is the limited diversity. So there are two main races that take the majority of Newcastle. That's 50% white and it's 30% Asian. So very high white and Asian populations. So there's a little bit of diversity, at least having two races, but the other races just aren't as represented as some of the other suburbs I've covered, like Burien, Kent, and Auburn. So there's only 3% of Black residents and about 5% Hispanic. So that could be a downside if you're looking for a community that's a little bit more racially diverse. The fifth con of living in Newcastle, Washington is the weather. So as I've said this before, and it's no surprise that living in the Seattle area can definitely just be a little bit dreary. We have over 200 days of gray, about 150 days of rain, but we also have about 150 days of sun. So as much as it rains here, it is also sunny, but the weather can be pretty brutal from somewhere in October, November range all the way until March or April. You can have a lot of gray days, a lot of drizzly days, and that definitely is a downer for people. I definitely think Seattle gets a bad rap for just raining all the time, and it really doesn't rain all the time. The average rainfall in the US is 38 inches, and we're sitting at about 44 inches in the Seattle area. So it's really not that bad, but I do know a lot of people that need happy lights or they need to travel during those 6 months of the year that are just not that sunny, because it can get a little bit depressing if you're not a fan of that, or if you don't have kind of some escape routes for yourself emotionally, because it just does get a little bit great. One of the greatest things about living in this area that I personally love, and I think it's way better than honestly the alternative, is that we don't have any extreme weather patterns. A little bit of weather patterns like climate change here, so the weather's become a little bit more extreme, but as far as comparing to places in the Midwest and the East that have crazy windstorms where you have like dumps on you, feet of snow, or tornadoes or hurricanes, wildfires, things like that. We just don't have any of that extreme weather. We are in a earthquake zone. We're right along the Pacific Rim tectonic plates. So we are susceptible to earthquakes, but we haven't had a sizable one since 2001. So it's been a hot minute here. And even that didn't do very much damage. Where I was, there was no damage done. It was a pretty sizable earthquake, but that again is the only thing you really have to worry about as far as weather's concerned. So as long as you can handle some of the great days, it's really not so bad here. I'm gonna end with sort of a pro and a con-ish, I guess. So the school districts are pretty good in Newcastle, but it's gonna depend on where you live in Newcastle to depend on what school district you are going to. The good news is that whether you are in the Issaquah School District, which a lot of Newcastle goes to, or the Renton School District, which another half of the city goes to, it is okay. So Issaquah School District is very highly rated, super high scores in math and reading, highly A+ rating from niche.com. Renton School District isn't as highly rated. However, when you are in Newcastle, you are slated to go to the top rated schools of the Renton School District. So you'll get to go to maybe Hazelwood Elementary. It depends on the elementary, I suppose, but Hazelwood is one that you might go to. And then the other choices are Risdon Middle School and then Hazen High School. So those are going to be, in my opinion, and some of the ratings online, the highest rated Renton schools. So even though those districts are different on paper, I definitely think you get the good side of the Renton School District, or you get to go to Issaquah, which is higher ratings across the board. All right, that sums up this ultimate guide to living in Newcastle, Washington. Hope you got a better idea of sort of the lay of the land. Obviously, just a beautiful residential place, I think, to bring your family. Incredible location and proximity to all things fun, while also having that more quiet place to reside back at the end of the day. It's not going to have that hustle and bustle of being in a larger city. So 2 thumbs up to Newcastle. I definitely recommend moving to this area. And if you do, definitely get in contact with me. I've lived here over 35 years and can help you make a great decision for your family. All it takes is giving me a call. We can hop on a Zoom, set up, an email exchange, whatever works for you, so I can get to know what you're looking for in your next home. If I don't get to see you around town, I hope you have a fantastic day. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.